Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Eddie. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be discussing the Zhiyun Crane 3S. This gimbal right here that you're seeing, I've had the opportunity to use it now for the last 2 months. I want to give a huge shout out to Flight Fanatics. James Earl, the CEO, sent me this gimbal, actually delivered it to my home and let me try it the last 2 months. He sent me this around December, I want to say early December. Now we're making this video towards the end of February. So I want to go ahead and take you through my overall first impressions. This video is going to be a series of 3 videos. This one today is going to be just, again, my overall feedback and first impressions of this Zhiyun Crane 3S. The next few videos that we're going to do is talk about some of these accessories here that you can add to the 3S, right? These extenders here, we're going to talk about that in a second, but these extenders you might want to grab. We're also going to show you how to add a monitor mount to this Crane 3S, and you can leverage any monitor that you may have. That's also important when you are filming cinematography out on the field. And then finally, the third video that I'm going to do is just my conclusion and comparing this Crane 3S to the DJI Ronin S2 Pro, which is a gimbal that I've been using a lot prior to, having the opportunity to test this one. So let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Alright guys, so this is the very first Zhiyun gimbal that I have ever used. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I have a Ronin RS2 Pro, and prior to that Ronin RS, my previous gimbal was the just DJI Ronin S, right? Their first version, which was a phenomenal gimbal. And now I have the opportunity to, try the Zhiyun gimbal. One of the things that I noticed immediately while unboxing this gimbal is that this Crane 3S is definitely designed to take a heavy payload. I mean, just the way that it's built, the way that it functions just right out the box, you can definitely tell that you can, carry a heavy payload on here. As you can see right now, I am shooting on a Sony mirrorless camera, but on the actual gimbal itself here today, I have the Canon 1DX Mark II with a 16-35 L lens from Canon. And if you know about, cameras, and you know specifically about the Canon 1DX, you know that this is a heavy camera. This camera weighs about 12 pounds with its current setup. And this gimbal has no problem handling this weight. Now, I am gonna go ahead and here place just the stats of this gimbal and what are the actual specifications, how much payload it can handle. I know that just searching the internet, I was able to see various YouTubers and various people using this gimbal with big heavy cameras, such as my 1DX. There's others that were using a Red Komodo. Even the mini Ari Alexas were on this Crane 3S. So I'm a strong believer that this packs its punch and it can definitely hold anything that you put onto it. All right, so let's go right ahead and talk about the unboxing experience. Straight out of the box, setting this up, one of the things that I immediately noticed is the overall build quality of the Zhiyun Crane 3S and its ability to just set up very quickly right out the box. Now, Zhiyun has a very unique design when compared to other gimbals because it has this extended arm towards the back and towards the bottom. And, they have a very unique design. One of the things that I loved immediately upon setting this gimbal up is that it actually has, the ability to lock the 3 axes. So you can lock it and keep it in place while transporting the gimbal. You don't have to necessarily take your camera apart, put it back together and do the balancing again. You can just lock all 3 axes and secure your camera during transport or when you're moving around during the set and you're not actually having the motors powered on. Another item that I noticed immediately while unboxing this gimbal was the fact that it comes with all the bells and whistles. Now, this is a unique gimbal in the way that they designed it and the way that Zhiyun designed it because of all the features that it comes with. It actually comes jam-packed with features. So for starters, it has this arm extender here, which you can go ahead and hold this camera in various different positions. I had a lot of fun out in the field just using my camera, the 1DX on this thing, and leveraging this arm extender here. Additionally, there is a lot of more controls here on the arm itself. So it's not just an extension arm that you can leverage the camera to put it in underslug mode. You actually have a lot of dials here. You can change your settings. You can go from first person view to follow to FPV. Well, that is first person view, right? But it has a lot of settings on there, and you can actually connect your camera to the gimbal directly, similar to like the newer gimbals out there in the market as well. And you can obviously pull focus using the focus wheel. You can, if your camera is supported, you can zoom in, you can zoom out. A lot of just great details. Now, the joystick to maneuver the camera is in a unique situation right here. I don't know if I like this a lot. That's one of my pet peeves of the placement of the joysticks on this Zhiyun gimbal, because I often found myself accidentally maneuvering the camera and just changing its perspective by tapping onto this little joystick here at the bottom. So I wish that maybe they placed this somewhere else, especially considering that you have an extension arm here. Now let's talk about my experience in balancing this gimbal. Balancing this gimbal is not a hard task at all. I feel like once you balance a gimbal, you're able to balance them all. For example, here you have the 1DX. The gimbal is currently powered off, and it is able to maintain its balance. Balancing a gimbal, like I stated earlier, is not something difficult. Once you stabilize one gimbal, you can stabilize them all. It's all about targeting each axis one by one and ensure that you have your balance correctly set. Now, one thing I do want to call out is that the ergonomics of this gimbal is not something out of the box that's easy to use. So for example, like here right now, I have it set up on my table. If I want to go ahead and pick up this gimbal, it is just quite a difficult task just because of, the short little tripod mount here. And then when you want to put it back, you kind of have to make sure that you have great biceps, especially if you're using a heavy camera, right? And then you want to expand that and then place it down. So that is one of the opportunities with this gimbal, I would say, is that if you're buying the 3S, then definitely leverage one of these arm extenders. I have a shorter one here and a longer one. You want to leverage this and install it in between the tripod and the actual main component of the gimbal. My next video is going to talk about these accessories, so you want to make sure that you tune in to see those. But that's something that when I leveraged that, I found it much easier to use, and I actually felt more comfortable, especially if you're going to be carrying a larger payload. Using this gimbal the last 2 months, I've had a lot of fun with it and a lot of learnings as well. One of the things that I found myself doing quite often is calibrating the motors. And what I mean specifically is calibrating the motor strength to handle your equipment. And I've went ahead and I've transitioned from, using this gimbal with a Canon 1DX to then leveraging it with my Sony mirrorless like the A7R IV. And, I found the same experience. You have to, every time that you balance your gimbal, once you have your camera installed, you want to go ahead into the menu and do a motor calibration, which the gimbal is going to, test each axis, each motor, and determine how much strength does it need in order to operate your equipment. Now, there's another step that you should take when calibrating your gimbal, and it's doing an actual gimbal calibration. I've tried to do it several times, and it's quite cumbersome. And the Zhiyun app, that's a big opportunity for the company to improve it. But you pretty much have to take your camera off after you balanced your gimbal and then set it up in 3 or 6 different directions and do the calibration. I think it's just testing the balancing on each axis while it's on the floor. It's pretty quite interesting and pretty unique and weird. I know if you ever use the DJI Ronin, right, it's pretty simple to do that calibration. It's doing your motor strength calibration and your actual balance calibration just by tilting it 15 degrees, going on the app, and then while your camera is mounted, the Ronin is actually going to turn your camera up, pitch it up, left, right. It's going to do the rolls, and it's going to test each axis, and then it's going to let you know, if you need to make any adjustments. On the Zhiyun, it was pretty challenging to do the calibration. In fact, I was never able to successfully do the calibration. Now, I do want to give it its benefit, right? No matter if I did a calibration or not, as soon as I put any camera, right, no matter the weight, and I did the motor calibration, this thing really did a phenomenal job just holding the camera very smooth. There was no vibrations that you usually get when you have motor strengths set up incorrectly. So just to make sure, when you're setting this up, do your motor calibration and then attempt to do the actual gimbal calibration itself, and maybe you're successful, but I was not. All right, let's go ahead and talk about my first impressions of the Crane 3S. I don't want to make this video too long because I want to do a series of 3 additional videos, as I mentioned earlier. So let's just talk about the first impressions. So coming from the DJI Ronin RS series, right? Unboxing this was quite a pleasure. And there's a few things that stand out to me with the Zhiyun gimbal. The first one that actually stand out to me is these, I don't know what you call these things. I'm having a brain fart here, but the rails, the railing system. The railing system, I liked how it includes some sort of railing system to support your lens, support your camera. I know that, again, using a heavy camera setup, sometimes you worry, is my camera too front heavy? So I think having this rail system here definitely helps you balance your weight on the gimbal itself, and might actually help it overall. The next thing right out the box that I really truly enjoyed is having this arm extender towards the back. It's a different, unique design compared to the typical, standard gimbals that you see out there. So having this arm here is a neat feature because, again, you can easily put your gimbal into underslug mode and not have any issues. And, you have a lot of buttons here in the front as well that allow you to set up your camera in different settings. As you saw there, one of the pitfalls with my first impressions is just the way that they set up this little tripod here at the bottom. It is just way too short. I accidentally tapped one of the buttons here, and you saw that the gimbal kind of took its own different approach and went into that barrel roll, 360 roll. Just because I was trying to grab it, I accidentally pressed the button. So that's one of the pitfalls, or the falls, or opportunities, I should say, with the Crane 3S. And then I think they just need to improve their overall app, right? Their application, their menu on the gimbal itself is not as friendly, or the UI is not as advanced as I'm used to in my experience. But for, I think this gimbal right now is going for $799. For $799, and I know that sometimes you can catch it on sale, it is a great buy, especially considering what it can handle, all the weight that it can handle. So, first impressions, would I recommend this gimbal? I would say absolutely. It's a gimbal that you are going to really enjoy leveraging. It comes already jam-packed with all the features that you want in a gimbal. And the battery life is phenomenal on it. The ability to charge the batteries on the go is phenomenal. And I think that it's really a good gimbal for all the features that it includes. The aesthetics. The aesthetics is something I want to talk about with the Crane 3S, because the Crane 3S is quite sexy, and I have to leverage the word sexy. How they combined the black with the gold finish, the gold accents, and even just their Chinese lettering and logo. around certain places, like the big motor in the back, you know, the huge Crane 3S logo on the side of the motor on the right. It's very appealing. And even the focus wheel here on the left, it glows in the dark, which also was a neat feature that I just enjoyed unboxing it. I'm always a punk when it comes to, you know, things that are aesthetically pleasing, and that's a huge determining factor when I'm buying a product is, do I like the way it looks as well? You know, I usually fall for that as a consumer, and the Crane 3S definitely is looking good with the aesthetics. It does come with its carrying case. It's quite a large carrying case just because of the form factor of the Zhiyun 3S, but it's a good traveling case, and you can, you know, take it with you on the go, whether you're traveling on the airplane or you're just traveling, you know, from sets. And you know, if you already have your camera set up, like I mentioned earlier, it has the very unique, which I believe Zhiyun was the first gimbal company to do this, but it has the ability to lock your 3 axes on the gimbal, and you don't have to go ahead and take your camera apart, set it up, and use it again. So I know that I said a lot. Let me know what questions you have in the comments below about the Zhiyun Crane 3S. I know that this is strictly mostly a FPV and drone channel, but I really want to start talking about camera gear, camera equipment. I have so much camera gear and camera equipment, and I don't really leverage it on this channel in terms of showcasing it to you as my audience. And I want to start doing that in 2022. Again, I want to thank the Flight Fanatics, James Earl, for letting me try this for the last couple of weeks, months. I don't know when this guy is going to come back to pick this up, but I'm happy to continue testing it for him, working out the quirks, and definitely giving him the advice when he's mounting his Panasonic G5s, I think is what he's leveraging on his gimbal. You know, for a G5 or a mirrorless camera, I really put this gimbal through its test using this heavy camera. But when you mount a mirrorless camera, a smaller form factor, it is just way easier to carry, again, maneuver, and you can really pretty much do anything you want with this gimbal. And you know, you guys are going to have a great time using this gimbal. All right, so that brings me to the end of this video. Again, please make sure to tune in, subscribe, hit the like, hit the bell so you get notified for the next few series of videos that I'm going to create on this Crane 3S. I have a lot coming out in regards to this gimbal, and I don't want you to miss out. And I'll be sure to answer your questions that you may have at the bottom here in the description. And until next time, peace.